of the high north is being shattered by the thunder of heavy engines. As we speak, a fleet of U.S. military aircraft is banking north, cutting through the freezing mist of the Arctic Circle. Their destination? The most contested piece of ice on the planet. This isn't just a routine training mission. It is a high-stakes that has sent shockwaves through the diplomatic corps of Washington, Copenhagen, and Brussels. As tensions simmer between the United States and its closest NATO allies, the arrival of American assets at Greenland's Pitufik space base has instantly raised the stakes. While the Pentagon officially labels this as a standard procedure, Europe is far from convinced. We are witnessing the opening moves of a new kind of Cold War, one where the battlefield is made of ice and the prize is global dominance. The signals are unmistakable. The Arctic is no longer a frozen wilderness. It is the new front line of global conflict. The effect coming out of Colorado Springs is one of calm and continuity. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, has confirmed that these aircraft are part of a pre-planned operation to bolster the aerospace shield of the Northern Hemisphere. According to military officials, this mission is essential for the collective security of North America, relying on the long-standing trilateral cooperation between the United States, Canada, and the Kingdom of Denmark. But behind the sterile language of press releases, a different story is emerging. Sources suggest that this deployment was initiated with little to no consultation with Danish authorities. The cooperation that NORAD speaks of is being stretched to its breaking point. For decades, the Arctic was managed through delicate diplomacy, but today, that diplomacy is being replaced by military hardware. The mission's scope has shifted. It's no longer just about monitoring the skies. It's about projecting American power in a region that Russia and China are increasingly calling their own. To understand why this move has triggered such a fierce response, you have to look at the map. Pitufik Space Base, formerly known as Thule Air Base, is perhaps the most strategic military installation on the surface of the Earth. Located in northwestern Greenland, it is the northernmost facility of the U.S. Space Force. It sits in a unique geographic sweet spot, halfway between Washington, D.C. and Moscow. Pitufik is the unblinking eye of the West. It houses massive phased-array radar systems that serve as the primary sentinel for the ballistic missile early warning system. These radars can detect intercontinental ballistic missiles the moment they leave their silos in Eurasia. But in 2026, its mission has grown. Pitufik is now a critical hub for monitoring the Polar Silk Road, China's ambitious plan to dominate Arctic shipping routes, and for tracking the newest generation of Russian nuclear-powered submarines. By reinforcing Pitufik, the U.S. is not just defending territory, it is locking the door to the Arctic. Denmark, however, is not content to be a mere spectator on its own territory. In a direct response to the American buildup, Copenhagen has begun reinforcing its own military presence in Greenland. Danish troops, specialized Arctic units, and naval assets are being moved into position alongside other NATO partners, who feel increasingly sidelined by U.S. unilateralism. European officials are now openly discussing the creation of an expanded permanent NATO Arctic mission. This is a radical shift in doctrine. For years, the Arctic was a zone of exceptionalism, where cooperation trumped conflict. Those days are over. Leaders fear that if they don't establish a collective NATO presence, the U.S. will act alone, potentially dragging the entire continent into a confrontation they aren't prepared for. The region is rapidly transforming into a new front line, where the lines between defense and provocation are dangerously blurred. The political atmosphere has been further electrified by the return of Donald Trump's assertive foreign policy. The White House has revitalized its push to expand U.S. influence over Greenland, viewing the island as a stationary aircraft carrier, essential for American national security. To Trump and his advisors, the math is simple. Greenland is the key to countering the growing no-limits partnership between Moscow and Beijing in the north. But this America First approach to the Arctic is creating rare and dangerous fractures inside the alliance. The European Union has entered the fray with uncharacteristic aggression. Leaders in Brussels have stood firmly behind Denmark, rejecting any notion that Greenland's status is a matter for negotiation. The warnings are no longer limited to diplomatic letters. They are talking about economic warfare. If Washington continues to bypass Danish sovereignty or escalate military pressure, the EU has threatened retaliatory tariffs. As the US aircraft touch down at Pitufik, the escalation ladder is being climbed, rung by rung. Every move by the Pentagon is met with a counter-move by the Danish defense industry. Every political statement from Washington is met with a rebuke from Brussels. This is how miscalculations happen. In the high-stress environment of the Arctic, where radar signatures can be misinterpreted and communication can be hampered by extreme weather, the presence of more combat aircraft increases the risk of a hot incident. Russia and China are watching from across the ice, and they are not sitting idle. The Arctic is now a crowded theater where the world's most powerful militaries are operating in close proximity, with zero margin for error. War has not been declared, but the signals are unmistakable. Greenland has become the ultimate test of 21st century alliances and power dynamics. The deployment to Pitufik Space Base isn't just a logistical movement. It is a declaration of intent. As the ice melts and the sea routes open, the battle for the top of the world is only just beginning. The world is watching the North, and what it sees is a region on the brink of a cold, or potentially very hot, transformation.